cocktail was a heady mix. Geopolitics, the search for perfection, sensuality, capitalist excess. Martini. Even the word's evocative. Melodic, that hint of European sophistication. My first martini, I'm sorry to say, was some time ago, and it did involve a bunch of officer cadets in dress uniform. I vaguely remember we were celebrating something. We'd had way too much booze already, and we'd gone to a fancy restaurant. And we all ordered vodka shaker martinis all around, as you do. I'd also vaguely remember we knocked them back just fine, made a bit of a racket, and probably got asked to leave. But you've got to start somewhere for this. Like all good icons, the martini's birth is shrouded in suitable legend. But if we can imagine ourselves in the middle of the California gold rush around 1850, there's a town called Martinez. There's one bar, and a miner walks in. He's got lucky, he struck gold. Champagne all round for my mates. The barman replies, sorry governor, no can do, no shampoo. He says, what do you mean, what do you got? Well, our governor. So rather than risk a fight and get a broken nose or losing 20 customers or more, the barman makes something up on the fly. Some Old Tom gin, some sweet vermouth, some maraschino, some bitters. Calls it the Martinez special. Luckily for the bartender in the bar, the miner likes it. He likes it a lot. So by the time he's got over his hangover, he makes his way to San Francisco, tells another bartender how to make it, and so it spreads. So it washes up as a recipe in the official American Bartender Manual around 1888. In more recent times, both the cities of Martinez and San Francisco held court cases to determine who could make claim to the birth of a martini. And I'm happy to report they both ruled in favour of themselves. So I like this birth legend for its elements: the frontier, the ambition, the innovation, with a touch of litigation. Now, the human need to escape from our woes has always been with us in some shape or form. You know, to be elevated just for a moment, to gain perspective, to bond with friends and to laugh. So in return, most societies, once they've got things like, you know, the basics like tool and the fire and the wheel and crop rotations out of the way, they tend to evolve to a point where they create some sort of fermentation or some sort of distillation, which is kind of where the story really starts. Arak, Slidovic, vodka, eau de vie, grappa, gin. Now the Dutch are very practical people, and they created one of the first forms of gin called Jennifer, using malted wine, herbs, and the juniper berry. And the word alcohol had washed up in English language around the 16th century. Now William III, who was a Dutchman, had become King of England. And with him came his Dutch troops, with them came the Jennifer, hence the term Dutch courage, by the way. And English got a taste for it. They liked it too. But they made their own style. So the gin we drink today is a sort of a descendant of that. So when you're having a martini, you're really having a conversation of sorts with all that history. The Australian writer Frank Morehouse, in his charming work Martini, a Memoir, posits this idea that there are certain places on the globe which are the natural habitat of the martini, by virtue of some sort of history or nature or disposition. So naturally places like LA, Manhattan, London, Washington, definitely Palm Springs, and Canberra. Yes? See, I think Canberra's an introvert. It's quite buttoned up. So it needs a little something to loosen its tie and get the conversation going, and what better than that but a martini. Now, Prohibition kicked things a lot for the martini. What with bathtub gin, the cocktail glass, any reason to party. And someone who knew that milieu really well was the American writer and poet Dorothy Parker. She put it like this: I like a martini, 2 at most, because 3 I'm under the table, and after 4 I'm under my host. So don't say you weren't warned, kids. For the purists, there are 4 official styles of the martini: the dry, the wet, the Gibbs and the dirty. I like a dry martini. It's got less vermouth. Back in the day, the ratio was almost 50-50 to vermouth and gin, or vodka. But with the introduction of dry vermouth and better quality booze, the ratio decreased. So the less vermouth you have, the drier your martini. It's a good place to start, especially if you've got really fine quality gin. The Gibson Martini, now fans of Mad Men will know the character Roger Sterling, one of the partners in the law firm. He drinks vodka Gibson Martinis over lunch, usually free, sometimes more, and you swap out the olive for a cocktail onion. It's an acquired taste, but once you get taste of it, you quite enjoy it. And the Dirty Martini has some of the olive brine mixed into the mix. They call it like a nice conversation martini, kind of stretches it out, and so on. Mae West put it quite nicely about the dry martini. She said something like, "Honey, let me get over these wet clothes into a dry martini." Anyways, my worst martini, I won't name where it was, but it turned up in an old-fashioned glass with rocks in it, like ice, and those black olives you get on top of a pizza. My own fault, really. It was in a sports bar with rugby on the TV screen, which is never a good sign. My wife will tell you the closest thing I get to an extreme sport is going to a new bar, ordering a dry gin martini and seeing what happens. You'll get this blank stare or your look of terror. Sometimes I might get, "Could someone get Derek? This guy wants a martini." It's true, it's happened. So I'll do like sometimes improvise 101, kind of mix, pour that, stop dead, don't do that. Just kind of, making the world a better place, one cocktail at a time. But I could digress. So back in the day, the glasses were much smaller than they used to be now. We'd know them almost like a sherry glass, and you made your martini in a big jug, pour it around. So Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, President Roosevelt during World War II, would use one of those at the end of the workday. So this is during World War II. So I don't know, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, he just called into the day's work, invite any sort of dignitaries and celebrities and staff along. And he'd mix up the cocktails in the mix, in the Oval Office. Very convivial. Only problem was they were terrible, by all counts. He'd mix up his garnishes, he'd get quite carried away, he'd do all sorts of strange, wonderful things. "How's your cocktail, Mr. Churchill?" "Oh, it's fine, Mr. President. Would you like another?" "No, I'm fine, thank you very much." But he sang quite merrily to himself as he got carried off to bed by a Secret Service detail. But he was saving the free world, after all. Apparently the word is President Obama and Michelle Obama, if they're warming up maybe for a night schmoozing in Washington, maybe some fundraising, want to get in the mood, they'll enjoy a couple of dirty martinis in the residence. So it's pretty classy, if you ask me. The two things have happened of late that make the martini quite an interesting moment. There's never been a better time, really, as a martini drinker to be alive. Lucky me. No, two things have happened. One is that you've had an evolution of new craft culture. So in the last several years, you've got great, amazing bars all around the world, staffed by bright young things, informed by tradition, with new takes on these recipes, and almost a culinary approach to their craft. And the other is the evolution of craft spirits. And craft spirits are such that they're handmade, they're informed by time and place, often sustainable principles. So around Australia or around the world, there are literally hundreds of new labels of vodkas, gins and vermouths being evolved. Each with their own backstory, each with their own personality, so you're getting all sorts of permutations. You see, with the martini, it's really the only cocktail that's actually made in collaboration with you and the maker. What gin do you want? What vermouth? What combination? What's their mood? What's your mood? What's the time and the place? Which almost make the infinite permutations for the cocktail. But when I think about Obama and President Roosevelt, I think they understand this well, that the martini is almost like psychotherapy in a glass. It gets you where you need to go in a hurry, providing you have the right intention, of course. It's also evocative. It's evocative like no other cocktail. It's evocative in the way that it's used in screen and film quite effectively. You see some characters in a bar in LA or New York or ordering martinis, you know they mean business. They can handle the liquor and still get the job done. Or you have that image of the glamorous hostesses in the 50s and 60s with the dresses, the little pinnies and the fantastic finger food going around. Happy hour, mischief in the burbs that follows. But my favourite scene featuring the martini must be by Alfred Hitchcock in North by Northwest. And it features Cary Grant and a sizzling Kim Novak on a train. So again, Cary Grant's an advertising man, like Roger Sterling, but he's on the run from the police. And he encounters Kim Novak on this dining car. And during the course of the scene, he knocks back 2 Gibson martinis. And there's this repartee between them, which is full of frisson. It's just sizzling. So here's the thing. You've got a handsome man, a dapper suit, an intelligent, glamorous blonde, promise of romance. You can't do that over a fluffy duck, kids. You really can't. That scene just wouldn't work at all. As for Mr. Bond, we better get Mr. Bond out of the way. Mr. Bond. Typically, the first martini appears in the first Bond movie, Dr. No in 1962. Sean Connery gets his delivered by room service, again, my sort of hotel. It's a medium dry vodka martini with a twist. And apparently in the official canon of Bond books by Megan Fleming, he knocks about 19 vodka, 16 gin martinis, and a whole lot more besides, as we know. But true to its commercial DNA, the martini in Bond films are always subject to some sort of product placement. But as a young man growing up, maybe I read too many foreign novels or watched too many foreign films, I aspired to be a gentleman. And wanted to get proficient of all the arts of a gentleman, you know, the usual things like poetry, fast cars, horse riding, fencing, wine appreciation, chasing pretty girls, and martinis were all part of that. So watching Bond movies and waiting for that iconic moment where the audience is, shaken, not stirred martini was just part of that. It seemed to me that the martini in those movies was an iconic part of it that stood for something in Western culture, even when those certainties probably didn't apply anymore in the real world. Now, not that I recommend Bond as a role model to anybody, I should point out. You see, I believe a great martini exists only in time. Because after 15 minutes, it's just a glass of warm booze. It's ephemeral. You drink it, and it's gone. It's a moment of luxury in a glass. Probably more indulgent because it is so transient. Oh, I'm getting thirsty. Are you getting thirsty? Yes, I think I'm getting thirsty. I think we're going to do something that could be a TED first. We're going to make a martini on stage. Is that a good idea to you? All right. There are 4 things that make for a great martini experience. The first is ambience, and to lend me to great effect, let me introduce Mr. John Black on the keyboard here, who's going to lead us down the righteous path of melodic. And a little je ne sais quoi for myself. Oh yeah, now we're getting warm. Okay. So I've got here before me the all essential ingredients with the suitable trolley. Everything nice and chilled. Now, I'll just get some of the ice out of the way. I'm going to take a nice dry martini. I'm using some excellent handcrafted Tasmanian gin, special release, just for us. Some excellent French dry vermouth, poor old vermouth, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But no vermouth, no magic, no martini. Some olives soaked in a special mix of my own. Oh, Frank Sinatra. Here's a man who knew how to use olives. Imagine his swank pad in Palm Springs. And if he was keen on a lady friend, he would offer his olives just as he finished his martini soaked in the booze. And if she accepted them, let's just say next time they dined together, it was breakfast time. But he was Frank Sinatra, after all. I've done this before, so trust me, I'm not going to measure this one, folks. Singular drop of orange bitters. It invokes that old original Martinez recipe, but it does make a big difference. The third element, second being ingredients, of course, is tempo. This helps a great deal. You want to be quick, but you want to be poised. You want to be measured. You don't have to wait too long to your cocktail, though. And you want a nice, even rhythm. Not forgetting, of course, the Holy Trinity. Gin, vermouth, garnish. Voila. I think I might have enough for 2. 1 for Ingrid and 1 for me, I think. And the, my best martini? Well, this might be it. You just never know. It's a search that goes on forever, really. But also, and the fourth and final most important element of all of any great martini experience is the company, which I think we've got covered nicely here today. So, my friends, thank you, John. A perfectly dry gin martini, the only one of its kind, never to be repeated. My friends, I give you ideas worth spreading. Thank you very much. Thank you. So John Black, everybody. Thank you.